5 reasons Mike Norvell needs to be fired today.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one place for you to get podcasts in the United States. And we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet just $5. And if it hits, you will unlock $300 to use across the FanDuel app. Just check it out today at FanDuel.com and download the app. We're going to be talking about James Franklin. We're going to get to that here in just a little bit. A coach that after Norvell is fired, hint, after, because it needs to happen. We're going to get that in a second. What would be the good news if Florida State hired him? There's some really good positives. I have followed Penn State for a long time. It's one of those programs you can win a title at if everything is right. He did about 90% of the things you need to do very well in Happy Valley. But what are the things that he doesn't do well? We're going to get into that. Could it be fixed at Florida State? He would have some advantages at FSU he didn't have at Penn State. We're going to talk about that. But first, straightforward and right into it. 5 reasons Mike Norvell needs to be fired so somebody like James Franklin could be hired. Let's get started right from the top. Number one is it's going to not surprise anybody, but we'll get to the list. I want to go in descending order, 5 through 1 here. Number 5, press conferences. Just spewing ridiculous stuff. Ridiculous. Today, just as a reference point, as I went over notes, looking at stuff from the press conference that Norvell had, he had the audacity and the ridiculous. If he believes this, I can't help the man. I've got an elite confidence of what's ahead for this program, Norvell. I believe in it. I believe in the guys. As I look at the roster, I see the guys. As I mentioned earlier, we've won championships here. We've done that. Define championship, because championship means national championship. If you want to say ACC, go ahead and put that word in there, because that's true. But if you just say championship, that means national. You have won no national championship at Florida State. Don't hint at it. Don't leave it even remotely in question. And he said championships. That's the only thing that he's won was 2023. And that was a great season. But you didn't win a national championship. You weren't in the contention for that at the end because of the unfortunate nature of all the things that happened with an injury to a certain quarterback. And we know the rest from there. But why would you say championships? This is year 6, and you're going to have possibly 4 out of 6 years with a losing record. What are you talking about? He's hinting like they're going to get back to that level, and he thinks that it can happen. He's trying to get the media on his side. Has he not seen anybody's podcast? Like, I'm not even the most negative, which is saying something. There are other people worse than I am on this. Are you kidding me? Norvell thinks that he can spit that out at a press conference, and I'm not going to waste your time on this. If you want to look it up, all the different sites have it. And I'm sure many of you have. War Chant, Noles 24/7, and on and on and on. They all have Noel Gameday. They all do a great job. Support them by all means. But I can't even read a third of an article with one of his press conferences, let alone, well, I cannot watch his press conference. I'm done. I will not watch another Norvell press conference. I don't care if he's at Florida State another 10 years, another 10 minutes. I will not watch another. The guy is terrible at press conferences anyway. And on top of it, this is a lie, and it's just ridiculous. So that's number one thing that I dislike about it. And I got him that's number 5 on the list. Number 4, as we do, again, descending order, year 6, I want you to think back to any game this year, win or loss. How inconsistent is Florida State? Think about that game and then think about the one in front of it or one in behind it. Name any stretch against quality competition, not the 2 teams that were FCS or whatever, or lower FBS. Take those 2 games out they won after Bama. They haven't had any consistency on either side of the ball all year. This is year 6. Does that sound like a guy that can win a championship? And when I say championship, I mean national. Nothing against the ACC. Nothing wrong with conference titles, but that's not the objective at Florida State. That's a low-hanging fruit. When was the last time Florida State was consistent on both sides of the ball and were dominant? 23 in certain stretches, certainly. They had a factor about them that's hard to explain when it came to the it factor in close games. Nothing wrong with that. But as soon as that season ended, boy, that was gone. Do we really believe that's coming back around? Do we? I mean, when has Norvell had anything like that? There's no way he can constantly be this bad, is there? But looking at stats, trying to think about it myself, like 2024, I mean, the only thing that was consistent then is that they were atrocious from game to game. That guy is going to put that stuff on his resume and then come into the press conference again. That really ticks me off on Monday and say that? Come on. Ridiculous. Number 3 on the list. I've got plenty of examples of this, but let's just go with Edwin Joseph. Players do not respect Norvell to the level needed to win championships or anything close. If you don't believe me, just go look up the Edwin Joseph stuff from the game. What was it? Stanford, I believe it was. Players not respecting him in the locker room. The inconsistency week to week on how hard they play to play, how hard they play. Is that a group that's bought into Florida State football? 100%? Of course not. Yet he's still employed. We'll get in just a teeny bit. We'll talk more about this. I had that up on Monday's show, but should he be employed? No. And this is just another reason. This is arguably the most embarrassing. The players not paying attention to him in the locker room is well documented. The Edwin Joseph situation has happened multiple times, and other players. That's partially on the players too, don't get me wrong. But you have to be a coach that's lost control of the team. Here's another example. Now, I like Lil Wayne. This guy I got to know a little bit while he's in high school. He can play. No doubt. Scored a touchdown against Clemson. But as soon as he got the personal foul call or whatever, he A, didn't get taken out of the game, and B, got the ball again right after. What kind of discipline is that? Do you think that would have happened under Jimbo? Do you think that would have happened under Bowden? They were lenient guys and wanted guys on the roster, even if they'd caused some trouble. They wanted to win, don't get me wrong. But that baloney, they'd been standing on the sidelines while the next guy would have went into the lineup and been their intended receiver on that play. Lack of respect for coaching, lack of respect for your teammates, lack of respect for time and situation, for your opponent, any of that, you stand on the sideline. It's not what happened in Florida State against Clemson. By the way, that's the same game where the Florida State players came out against a very raucous crowd and all that because it's a rivalry game. It's Death Valley. You think, oh, Florida State's going to be into. Players didn't respect the game plan. That's obvious because they scored 0 points up until right before halftime, and they'd left all these points on the field. You know they didn't prepare because they didn't respect the coaches the way they should. There is no respect from the players towards that staff, who's led by who? Mike Norvell. Period. Number 2. This one is something that has been documented everywhere under the sun, and I can tell you this firsthand as somebody that covers recruiting in many different ways. Norvell, up until at least recently, you could argue otherwise recently, but especially when he started out in Tallahassee, was a lazy recruiter. By the standards set at Florida State, by those elite standards, lazy recruiter. He used the portal. He did not use the high school ranks anywhere near the way that he should, and he did not get involved the way that he should. F-. It's an F-. You can't have guys that don't close. You can't have guys that don't plan to build through the high school ranks, Florida State or otherwise, and expect to be a championship contender. And make no mistake, Florida State, absolutely unequivocally, is a program that you can win a championship with the right head coach, even with where Florida State is right now, even in the ACC. If they hired the right coach right after Norvell was canned, within 3 years, you could be in the Final Four, and then you always got a shot. After that, you could absolutely be in that hunt. Within 3 years. Do you really think Norvell is going to do that in 5? Because this year, the way things are trending, do you really think they're going to have a winning record? What is it? 4 out of 6 years? Again, they're going to have a losing record under him? No. It's ridiculous. When we come back, the number one reason why Mike Norvell needs to be canned, that is next here on Locked On Seminoles, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. College football is back, and it couldn't be more exciting. Tailgates, the rivalries, all the energy in the stands. There's nothing like it. But let's be real. Getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the actual game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping out at you at the checkout. That's why I use Gametime, and I actually just bought 2 tickets to a game recently to my alma mater, Indiana, to go see the Hoosiers play some basketball. 5 minutes in and out. Found the game I wanted. Found the seats I wanted. Used the seat view, and even typing in the credit card information, I was in and out in 5 minutes. Really simple with Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Gametime app today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I am Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day whenever you can. We really appreciate you stopping in. And now the number one reason Mike Norvell should be fired today. No doubt about it. This is the most important thing that every head coach does once he is in the fold. And again, name the program, Florida State, LSU, or anywhere else. His staff. When he originally made it to Tallahassee, he made some errors. That's egregious because it wasn't just like 1 or 2, it was several, and it was coordinator based. And on top of that, he wouldn't get rid of them. He had to have his hand forced to get rid of guys. That never works. Never works. You must be able to cut bait at a moment's notice, even if it's your best friend. And that's why I always say the same thing that I'm going to say again right now. Do not hire people that you are friends with just because you're friends with them, or even if they're good coaches. If you think there's 1% chance that you couldn't pull the trigger, you can't hire them. Just about everybody gets canned in college football. Almost everybody. It is not a friendly business because fan is short for fanatic, and those are the ones funding these programs. That is true. But Norvell, he didn't want to fire anybody. That's not going to get it done. Now, he made some assistant changes this year, and I think it's better in some ways. In long term, it would be better, but it's still not going to get you a championship level because it combined with the recruiting snafus, the damage he's already done, they're not going to build the roster they need. Do I believe Norvell with the current staff can be a bowl team consistently after this year? Possibly. But Gus isn't going to be around much longer. He's an older guy. He doesn't have to deal with all this stuff. Guys like me saying these guys need to do better. They're not going to put up with that. Tony White's probably not going to stick around long. Doesn't have the kind of roster that fits what he wants to do. And he's pretty linear on what he wants to do. He's not much for adjusting. That's obvious. So I think we're looking at a 7-5 coach. He's put himself in this situation. Recruiting and his assistant coaching are like 2 vital things. Those are his biggest crutches. But the coaching stuff is the worst because for a coach to be an elite recruiter as a head man, he has to hire the right assistants to get him in a position to close. And he didn't do it. He hired a bunch of subpar recruiters. Don't believe me. Believe anybody that's on the daily beat that lives in the greater Tallahassee area or covers Florida State recruiting for a living. You're not going to get one person disagree that Florida State had not just a good, but a really good recruiter in Mike Norvell. Not one person. I have never spoken to anybody. I've asked a ton. Hey, can he get it done with that? No. And then on top of it, again, he didn't hire the right people. So number 2 and number 1 are like the most critical things you do are Norvell's biggest downfalls. There is no doubt about it. Mike Norvell should be fired today. And just a prediction before we go on to the James Franklin stuff, they will lose at least 2 of their final 3 games. And I am predicting, before we even get there, Friday show, I always do prediction for a game. I am picking Virginia Tech, and they're a 2 touchdown dog. Straight up, I'm picking Tech. Why? I think it's really close to the Florida State players quitting. Yeah, I hope I'm wrong, and I would love to be wrong, but I don't think I am. Too many cracks in the dam from that Clemson game. It's teeter-tottering back and forth week to week on how they play. It's not going to go well. So we're going to see if the Florida State administration has much of a spine at the end of this year, because I don't think they're going to do the right thing and make the firing now, but I digress. With that, let's talk a little James Franklin. Why should Florida State look at him as a head coach? What are some of the good things and the bad things? Well, number one, I just talked about recruiting with Norvell. Franklin is a big-time recruiter, not just from a personal level, not just from who he hires to make sure they're held accountable, but he finds guys that fits his program, and he is super picky about culture and players fitting what he wants in his locker room. Amen to that. It's why Penn State was successful while he was in Happy Valley. Nothing wrong with it. You're always going to have a bad apple no matter what you do. Guys get big heads, NIL, etc. But overall, Penn State had a pretty good roster, and I'm talking about off the field. That's important. So he would represent Florida State in the right way. Players would, etc. He's very organized from top down, bottom up, any way you look at it. They use camps very, very well. He's extremely involved with underclassmen recruiting. Penn State was one of the leaders in the country with a class of 27 before he got fired. That like number one class. He understands what it is to be involved with recruiting directly, having the staff, getting out ahead of it, recruiting locally, recruiting nationally. They had kids committed from California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, all over the country over the last 5 years. All of that. So recruiting would be the number one reason you could look at him and say, you know what? Florida State needs more of that. No matter who they hire, Franklin or otherwise, when the deed is finally done with Norvell, they've got to be able to hire somebody that can recruit. Franklin's about as good as it gets with that. As for the portal, this is where Norvell obviously dipped in too much. He's used it, but strategically. I'm okay with that. 8 to 12 range, give or take 10 a year, which is perfect. Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, Notre Dame, Georgia, Bama, those schools, they recruit well. And then when a guy turns pro early, like if you did, you get caught off guard, whatever, you supplement in the portal. Florida State's went the other route, and they've had too much of a revolving door. Franklin's proven that he knows how to do it. You got to really develop those kids. And like this is an example. They've had multiple 3-star and lower ranked kids that were pass rushers go to the NFL, linebackers, DBs. They develop kids. He hired good coaches. He can evaluate that too. So if you just compliment a little bit from the portal, and it's been proven Florida State obviously can do that. It's not a hard place to get people to come. You could, again, with the right head coach, maybe it's Franklin, who knows, within 3 years, you can have Florida State in the Final Four competing for a title, 100%. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about two other areas that I like with Franklin, but I'm also going to talk about the one area that really concerns me. It's something that Franklin probably just thought it was going to get better, and it didn't. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. What does James Franklin also do well beyond the recruiting, the portal, hiring his staff? Like, what else does he do well? Just overall defense. Like, they develop pass rushers. They're aggressive with their DBs. They can play some zone, but they get after it. So you're not going to see just one thing. It's not easy to prepare for them. And he's also a guy that is open-minded about letting his coaches coach. He had different DCs. That's different philosophies that were very, very successful. If you don't allow assistants to really do their job the way they see fit, it tends to not work out, especially in today's society. And they're like, bye-bye. It'll be a revolving door. Franklin did a pretty good job of that. He had several guys there for several years. But there's also the other side of it. Like, the defense is good. The run game, by the way, they're really good. Power football, a lot of linemen. He recruited linemen, by the way, at a very high rate. But the one thing I never understood, and he probably thought this was going to get better as they matriculated with the last group they had into this year, they actually got worse. This makes no sense to me. Somebody explain it all the way through on why. But their passing game actually deflated its numbers over the last few years. They went from a sophomore starter to a junior starter to a senior starter quarterback, yet the numbers went down in terms of production. Here are the passing numbers for Penn State. 2022, these are national statistics, not Big Ten or anything like that. 2022, 252 yards, 46 in the nation. That's how many passing yards average. Okay. 2023, 215, it was 79. 2024, it was 66, 227. Like, to be under 230 the last couple of years, I know they got good running backs, but like, really? The game they had last year against Notre Dame and that game down in the Orange Bowl, they didn't complete a pass to a wide receiver. Not one. Like, statistically a fact. Yeah, Notre Dame's got NFL DBs. Great. Not one? Really? That is just mind-blowing. So whoever wants to explain that to me, fire away, because that just doesn't make sense. So now here's the other part. With Franklin, the only question here is, could it work at Florida State? What you've done in the past is a barometer. It is not the end-all, be-all. Fine. But what areas would Florida State help everything come together, if anything? Well, let's just talk about the problem I just mentioned. Has Florida State ever had a problem obtaining wide receiver talent? No. Has Florida State ever had a problem of being an explosive offense when competent head coaching was there? Also a no. I think just by proxy, if he runs a pro-style offense and spreads it out, it shouldn't be that hard. Really shouldn't. I think 8 wins would be the low bar by year 2. Year 1 is always iffy when head coaches change. I never like to make many predictions. But anything under 8 after that would be very surprising to me. He's had the experiences at Penn State. He's had the experience. He won at Vanderbilt. What was it? They won 9 games one year at Vandy. That's pretty hard to do before he went to Penn State. But you got to hire the right staff and all that. Okay, he's done that before. Probably should. If that goes right, by year 3, I would expect a 10-year season at the end of that season. By the end of year 3. Maybe even better. The ACC is not that good. Look at this year. I mean, for the love of mankind. If Florida State would have been any kind of normal to their standard with a head coach like Franklin, yeah, they would have won the league this year. There isn't, like, there's somebody's going to get named ACC champ. Whoever it is going to get stomped probably in the playoff. Like, not beaten, but obliterated. It's sad. To that end, I think James Franklin could be a very good coach at Florida State. I don't know if he would take that next step. I'm not willing to go that far. Those passing game numbers are fact. That is concerning. Doesn't mean they couldn't improve, at least in some way, though. I think proxy again. You're going to get more playmakers at FSU than you do at Penn State. State of Florida, state of Georgia. If they were only allowed to recruit those 2 states, which obviously is not true, they would have a better passing game than what Penn State does. There's just more receivers down here. That being the case, Norvell, he squandered it to a lot of reasons, even though he's used portal and everything else, because there's still times Florida State hasn't thrown the ball. So it could happen if you don't coach it well. But that's my only real concern, is Franklin has struggled with offense, and that's why they haven't won big games. When you play elite teams in modern football, look at that game a few years ago, Georgia playing against Ohio State. What was it? Final score was like 43-41, 42-41, something like that. Those are teams with a lot of NFL talent. A lot. But you had to score in the 40s to win. Can James Franklin's teams do that? That is the big crux. We don't know for sure. I just think it would be easier to get the parts, meaning the key players, to win at Florida State as compared to Penn State. And again, I have no doubts that Franklin would find the staff, he's proven it before, to bring to Tallahassee to put him in that contention. He just has to be open-minded, and this is where it gets very, very tough. Completely open-minded about throwing the football and even occasionally being, God forbid, a pass-first offense in some cases. That's not his MO. And coaches, as I always say, generally hate the word change. Like, really hate it. Sometimes you got to do that if you want to win, though. We'll see. I don't know if Florida State has contacted his agent. I don't know if they would go after him, but I think he's an intriguing fit, and you could do a lot worse than James Franklin. I just wanted to use him as an example, and everybody could have their own fit. If you think of somebody else that's better, there's plenty. And I just used Franklin today as an example. I didn't come on here to talk about him after my Norvell commentary to say he should be the next hire. I'm not saying that. I'm just making a case for him. And I have some others I'm going to make some cases for as well. But nonetheless, college football is a very unique deal. It is chemistry. It is partisanship, meaning you've got somebody you do or you do not like because of where else they've been, etc. He's a guy that's coached in the South. He's coached in the North, but he hasn't coached in the state of Florida. Maybe it's one of those deals where you don't like him for that, or maybe you want Florida State to go in a whole nother direction. So you do like Franklin. You can approach it from whatever way you want. I'm cool with it. But Franklin is a guy they could probably do pretty well with. Just saying. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Please come back and see us again if you have not already become an everydayer. Like and subscribe. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles.